Welcome in. I'm doing last second adjustments because that's just how I am in my general phases of life. Welcome in, Bears Nation podcast. It is Wednesday, February 8th. We are approaching a big game. You may have heard about it. It's called the Super Bowl. That's coming up in just a couple days, but nevertheless, we continue because the Bears obviously are not in the Super Bowl. They are the opposite of in the Super Bowl. They have the first overall pick. As you famously may have heard over the last couple of weeks, people have been talking about it. Or if you're just coming out of a coma or something, hey, the Bears are the number one overall pick and they're not in the Super Bowl. Sorry to say. But anyway, myself, Jake Hassan, here as always with Kevin Lapka. We have a lot to talk about today. We have a guest today for the first time in a while. We haven't had a guest in a long time, for a couple months probably. It's definitely, maybe before the season. Did we have a guest during the season?
Yeah, we had Tom Thayer. All right, no, Tom Thayer was before the season, wasn't he? Yeah,
I think Thayer was. He was during the season because I was in Nashville for a wedding, I believe.
Yeah. Okay.
I was out of town. I know I was gone, as I usually am for our guests somehow. But anyway, we have a guest again today for the first time in a while. Gabe Ramirez is going to join the program. Chicago Gabe, you may have heard him on local Chicago radio. Catch him on The Score. Catch him on B96. He's everywhere. He's doing a lot. He was gracious enough to join us. He's going to hop on. We're going to talk the draft. We're going to talk the Senior Bowl a little bit for as much as you can pick that apart. And we're going to talk about free agency, of course, as we're this close. I mean, in about a month and a half or so, free agency opens, negotiating periods start. So we're going to start getting some news here about the Bears, and then we can all start getting super optimistic about 2023-24 and then get our hopes completely crushed probably. But that's what the best part of the offseason is for. When hope springs eternal and we get to get excited about signings and draft guys and everything. But Kevin, welcome back. We took a week off, and now we're back. How you doing, man?
Doing well. You kind of got to do it. I think a lot of you guys out there, you probably didn't care that much about Bears content last week. If we could we have done
guess
a show?
What,
probably,
Kevin?
But
it's February 8th. Guess what? We're gonna do it again at some point. Yeah. There's gonna be weeks where we're gone because we both work, and also it's the Bears in February. We're gonna take some weeks off coming up. Okay. So I'm sure you guys will be fine once this thing starts. It's as the Bears go, we go. If there's something that happens, we'll do a breaking news. It's fine. 100%. We're not going anywhere. We'll be right here. It's all going to be okay. I know you all were banging the table being like, where are they? What are they doing? Listen, it was a busy week last week. It's been a busy week, but we're back because we do that for you. We do these things for you. And so we're back. And Kevin graciously prepared some topics for us because that's just what he does. The guy just puts out content. He puts out graphics for The Score all day long, and he still comes up with a list for us to talk about on the show. It's great. It's just a guy who's committed to the grind, and we love it. And a guy who will post an Instagram story from the gym at 12:30 at night. And I'm like, damn, what is Kevin doing at the gym at 12:30 at night? That's crazy. But anyway, I digress. So what are some of these things? Oh, that's my former employer. We don't want that. There we go.
There you go. Good job.
Brain broke for a second. So Kevin, what do you got before Gabe joins us in about 10 minutes?
Yeah, we got a decent amount on deck. Look, I'll be honest. I wasn't up for 4 hours before this, putting together a little rundown. I kind of just threw some shit together here in the last hour before the show. But there's some relevant things to talk about, some things that Bears fans have been, throwing around on Twitter the past couple weeks. Again, while you try to make news out of nothing, this is what we do. Some news from other teams that could pertain to the Bears as far as what they may do in the offseason. So let's start there, right? Let's start with the Bengals and Tee HIggins. There was a report that came out last week that it's looking likely that the Bengals are going to be unable to pay Tee HIggins if he, quote, is looking for I think the word was like an immense number, right? He's looking for a big number in a contract extension, which, why wouldn't he? right? Again, we've done this already with Tee Higgins with his numbers. This is a guy who's got already 3,000 career receiving yards. You know, he's obviously a wide receiver one, just is unable to be that with the Cincinnati Bengals because he's playing behind Jamar Chase, right? He's a wide receiver one on any other team, or maybe, you know, a few others that, again, he might be behind Stephon Diggs or Devonta Adams. You get the gist, right? And the odds are he's going to be looking for that probably, quote, immense number, which the Bears can pay him, but the Cincinnati Bengals cannot. So once that report came out, as Bears fans and Bears Twitter do, it's Bears, you know, like, again, we do this all the time, and in the past, it's irrational. Like, in the past, you've had no picks, you've had no money, you can't trade for a player like Tee Higgins. Now, with your cap space and with your draft capital, you can trade for Tee Higgins. This is possible, and it's rational. So, I present it to you. What is your solution? Because here's the problem with trading for Tee Higgins, right? And I don't know if we had the discussion on the show or yet or not.
Probably.
Would you agree that Tee Higgins is worth a first-round pick? Because that's where you have to start when you start with this conversation. Is he worth a first-round pick?
I mean, he's obviously not number one overall. Take that, throw it.
Exactly.
Obviously not number one, but if you're talking about next year, when you assume if everything goes correctly, let's say you get Higgins and you get Orlando Brown Jr. to put him at right tackle, not left tackle, maybe where he's supposedly better, or allegedly where people think he would be better. You had a couple, maybe you had Jalen Carter at number one overall and a couple other defense guys. And if you hit your ceiling and Justin Fields takes that next leap and maybe he gels with Chase Claypool a little bit more, as well as with Tee Higgins and then Darnell Mooney, of course, as well. Your ceiling, you're hoping, is 9, 10 wins, maybe 11 in the playoffs. Then you're talking about a first-round pick that's in the bottom half of that first round. Then I would say yes. But that's the risk you take, because if all those things don't happen and you win 3, 4, 5 games again and you're in the top 10 again, it's like when Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be in the draft next year, it's kind of like, crap. But I mean, I would say for the most part, yes. I would assume with the stipulation that you're outside like the top 10, maybe even the top 8. If you're outside the top 8, let's say, then I would say yes.
I would agree. So here's where things get tricky, right? You said, well, obviously he's not worth the number one overall pick. So how can you put together a trade package for Tee Higgins? And here's what I think is the most likely opportunity for that to happen. You trade down from number one overall. You accumulate a future first-round pick, or you accumulate another pick in the first round of this year's draft, and you do a draft day trade for Tee Higgins. The Cincinnati Bengals are a team that could probably use Paris Johnson. They could probably use, they might look at their roster and say, hey, we might be X player away from beating the Kansas City Chiefs and returning back to the Super Bowl next year, right? Like, they're a flawed team in certain areas. They still need to protect Joe Burrow. They may see a Paris Johnson drop or a Skoronski drop and say, hey, if you traded with the Raiders and you got down to 9, or you traded with Carolina, right, and you got down in that area, then maybe Cincinnati would trade up for you, and in a trade up would include Tee Higgins. And this isn't a crazy idea, because last year, if you remember, A.J. Brown was traded on draft day from the Tennessee Titans to the Philadelphia Eagles. Like, these draft day trades for big name players, they do happen. They're extremely rare, but they do happen. So my idea is you either do that and you accumulate Tee Higgins in a trade where somehow Cincinnati wants to move up, or you accumulate that future first, you accumulate more assets, and then you go into the summer, and then around June and July, when you get to the holdout phase of the offseason, where if Tee Higgins is sitting there waiting for his money and the Bengals don't want to give it to him, you're in the holdout phase. Then, because of the picks you have accumulated from a trade down in April, then you're able to make a trade later in June and July. I think that's the only scenario. Tee Higgins, if he were to be a Chicago Bear, it's impossible for him to get traded here before the draft, because he's going for a first-round pick, and you're not trading number one overall for him. So unless, right, we also brought up the fact that, hey, the number one overall pick can also be traded before draft day. Sure. I think the Niners and Dolphins, when they made the trade for the Niners to move up to get Trey Lance, that was like late March. Like, and if I had to guess, because there's so much interest in this pick, and because I think you can plan out more. If you're Ryan Poles and you're the front office of the Chicago Bears, if you make that trade a month before the draft, you now have a whole month to decide, okay, now we're at 4, or now we're at blank, right? Now we know what to do, instead of on draft day, oh shit, now we just moved down to 4. Now we just moved down again. And you're making decisions on the fly. So That's my thought on Tee Higgins. I think it's viable. I think it's reasonable, but it can only happen after the draft. So Bears fans, slow down is my take there.
Well, I mean, that isn't necessarily true because let's say you trade with the Colts to 4 and you get an extra second round pick for day 2 and a couple extra day 2 picks. You still definitely have to give up a first rounder, but let's say you give up your Ryan Poles. Let's say you have to give up your own 2024 first rounder, but then you give up your current second rounder, which I mean is, later. And then you give up the Colts one that you got as well. Like it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a day 1 trade. It could be day 2. And depending on if you, like you said, and like we all expect, a trade down, and we'll ask Gabe about this too when he comes on, what he expects to happen and what he wants to happen, because those could be different things, obviously.
True.
But, if you get the right package from the Colts that includes multiple 2023 picks on day 2, you could feasibly swing something still on draft day or during the weekend of the draft.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's possible if you were able to package it that way. I'm also not afraid. Like, I'm not afraid of giving up an asset for Tee Higgins. Like, I think there's people who, and I think
what do you mean by an asset?
Like, there's people who are gonna say, like, who are nervous to give up a first round pick for Tee Higgins. They're nervous to do it just because it's the first round pick, and if you're giving up a first round pick, you better be getting a guy worth that, and if not more. And I think he's worth that. But people are nervous just because it's already happened. And this is here's my whole, the one thing that is just holding me back from being all in on just saying Ryan Poles is going to get one of these guys in the offseason is, and I think we made this point a couple weeks ago, he's done it already. He's done it and he's failed. He's done it and he's failed.
Well,
he made the move and
failed in the scope of this season.
Sure. But it certainly wasn't great, right? It certainly wasn't great.
Sure.
Been there, done that. He might say, look, been there, done that. I'm not going to give up another, technically, another first-round pick for a wide receiver because number 32 is technically a first-rounder. That's 2 first-round picks that he would be making. And IG Station says too soon. Yes, I know it's too soon. But if you are evaluating this, if you're in the mind of Ryan Poles as he enters this offseason, then that's on his mind. That's on his mind. Like, he has a projection for what Chase Claypool can be, but even he didn't see it coming when Chase Claypool ended the season the way that he did. He thought he'd be a little bit more productive, and I think the reason he traded for him was more about what he could do instantly for Justin Fields to get more answers about him for the remainder of the 2022 season than, hey, we're going to take this slow, have you be a superstar next year, and then sign you to a contract extension. I think it was more about what he could do for you for the remainder of 2022, if I'm being entirely honest. So I think he might be sitting there saying, hey, been there, done that. I'm not giving up more assets. We're doing this my way. I like to bring in young talent. I like to draft my own guys. I don't know. That's the only thing holding me back from thinking he's just going to be all in on trading for Hopkins or Higgins or Adams or there's one other name that I'm forgetting. Whoever it may be.
Evans. Did you say Evans?
Evans, right. Evans. That's the only thing.
So I think when you're talking about this, like the Claypool situation, which you just, and you're right. I mean, it didn't work out the way you did, and obviously injuries to Claypool himself and to Justin Fields complicated that situation, of course. I think the difference when you're talking about Claypool and Higgins is that you're talking about 2 different guys entirely. Like Tee Higgins, Chase Claypool, when you traded for him, you were like, really? Like, I get he has some potential, but like, really? And so then you were banking on the potential, not just for this year, but also for next year. And I think with Ryan Poles, when he made that trade, he probably saw something in Chase Claypool that was like, okay, this guy could be an asset going forward and he could turn into whatever. But, also for this season, obviously a lot went into how that kind of fell flat, but Tee Higgins and Chase Claypool are super different in my opinion. Like Tee Higgins has been really, really good for a couple of years now at levels that Higgins has already reached levels that you're projecting for Claypool, that you hope Claypool can be. If that costs you a first round pick, you already feel confident in what you're getting. And that's why Claypool cost you a second rounder. And while it's still a steep price, given what we know now, at the time, Ryan Poles, I think, fell a little bit of victim to my quarterback's balling out right now. You're not completely out of the playoffs. Let me make a move that could push us forward.
Don't argue that it was for a playoff push. He was in on the tank.
Let me finish. Skip, let me finish. I think that he got caught up in the moment of being like, okay, this guy could take us to the next level offensively, but also this still, even if it doesn't work out, I still have next year to fall back on and kind of be like, okay, well, this didn't go the way we wanted it to this year, but and hearing everything that we are now, full off season, healthy off season, work with the coaches, learn the playbook, learn each other, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A guy like Tee Higgins, again, I'm just going to go back to my original point of a guy like Tee Higgins has already reached levels and conceivably could reach even higher levels than what you're projecting for Chase Claypool. So if you think that you can be a playoff team next year, let's say the 20th pick, then I think you do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I'm with you. Real quick before we get Gabe on here, the other thing I want to touch on was there was an article written about potential cap casualties for the Chargers, and we did this for the Bears, and there's a lot of interesting options for the Bears. We actually talked about Al-Qaeda Muhammad is a guy who can save you $4 million, Cody Whitehair, another guy who can save you around $4 to $5 million. Well, I think Keenan Allen can save the Chargers something up to like $9 million.
Don't want him. Don't want
Really?
Him. That guy plays 6 games a year.
Yeah.
He plays 6 games a year.
He's the modern day Alshon Jeffrey, right? He's a soft tissue hamstring. You know, he's dealing with all that.
Like, he's great. Don't get me wrong. Like, he's really good.
Yeah, I'm with you.
If you're only look what just happened with Chase Claypool, a lesser player. Like, look what just happened to him. You couldn't count. He wasn't there, and then your offense suffered for it. So yeah, I get it. He's great, but if you're in the Bears situation, you're not in a position to take that kind of gamble. Like, if you if you're the Bengals, let's say just for the sake of argument, because we were just talking about Tee Higgins, if you're the Bengals, you can take that kind of gamble. Like, let's say you trade Tee Higgins. It doesn't have to be the Bears, just in general. The Bengals trade Tee Higgins, sure, and then they need someone to take that number 2. They're in a position to sign Keenan Allen as a flyer and say, okay, let's hope he stays healthy, or let's hope he's healthy at the end of the year for the playoffs. You can do that if you're the Bengals because you have Jamar Chase, you have Tyler Boyd, you have a great situation there already. Yeah. The Bears need guys that are established and that they can count on. Keenan Allen is not that right now.
Yeah, I think part of the chat's torn on what they think. Jacob Odadaza says, "What are you smoking?"
He's Jake's good. Right. He's really good, but it's just right. Situations are situational.
I think again. So this is where things get interesting with the draft and free agency and why it's sort of hard to figure out what they're going to do is because if they have a plan, right, that you're going to get a wide receiver in the first round or early in the second round, you saw some of those Senior Bowl names really rise up with Nathaniel Dell and some of those other guys. Like, if you have that plan, then I'm fine with taking a flyer on a Keenan Allen just to have veteran presence, just to have a guy who's been around the league who can be a safety blanket for Justin Fields. And if he doesn't work out, if you sign him to, if he's cut, right, and at that point, like, you're probably not signing a guy of his age to larger than a 1-year, maybe a 2-year contract, but it's probably for him at that point a 1-year prove-it deal, right? I'm fine with paying him a 1-year prove-it deal as your veteran presence there, as your guy who can be a safety blanket. And if he gets hurt, he gets hurt, and that's fine because if it's a 1-year deal, the future of the franchise when the window is supposed to open in 2024, when you're supposed to be a Super Bowl contender, is already supposed to be Jackson Smith and Jigba, whoever it may be, and Darnell Mooney, right? And the next batch, and Keenan Allen can sort of be a placeholder for like 2023. But I don't know. It's just a name to throw around. Gabe's going to get back in here in a second. I think he's dealing with some headphone issues. But when he gets in here, we will let you know. Another thing I had written down, I don't know how much you want to touch on this. I don't know if you heard what Matt Nagy said. CHGO, our guys over there, great work. Talked to him with the Super Bowl. Kind of talked about the things that he sort of regretted with the whole Justin Fields situation in Chicago, and they specifically referenced the Cleveland game. And it felt to me like there was a lot of forgiveness being thrown around on Twitter. Like there was a lot of people sort of rolling back, which is naturally happens. And I saw someone say there's a good chance that at some point Matt Nagy turns into what Dave Wannstedt is in this town, where he can be sort of a quirky, fun guy, in the media, right? Once his coaching career is over, and people sort of at that point forget how bad of a coach he was. And I think it's already happening. Like, I think because of how well he's doing in Kansas City, or put how well in air quotes, because I don't think you can chalk that up to Matt Nagy. It's Patrick Mahomes, right? But there's people who still want to say that he's having an influence, and Patrick Mahomes is going to be in the MVP this year. So those who make that argument, have some things to rely on there. But after hearing what you heard him say about, we didn't. All these situations are different. We didn't want to throw him into the fire against Cleveland. Do you feel any more forgiveness towards that situation and towards Matt Nagy at all?
I mean, it's just yeah, I guess just because like it is like you're going into year 2 of a new situation, so it's just like whatever. I don't. The problem is like I think when you're throwing around like the Nagy and Wani comparisons, it's like Wani's way more personable and just like he has way more of a personality. Like Matt Nagy's like kind of softer spoken. You know, you kind of got to seek him out.
Is he
Like
though? I mean,
let's put it this way: like
the fucking play sheets on his wall in his basement.
Yeah, in his basement. Like again, that's like going to him. Like Wadi's on TV every weekend. Like he's doing radio every week. Like I think, but and also just like it's been way more time. Maybe in 20, 30 years, whatever. Like, but Nagy, like I wouldn't say forgiveness. I just think it's like, all right, it's been like it's over. Who cares anymore? Like, what's the point? Just like let bygones be bygones, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Like you could definitely take that point, but I think ultimately, say Justin Fields' career is at 8 years from now, like overwhelmingly, this is going to be like just overwhelmingly underwhelming, right? Like it's a consensus that he sort of had an underwhelming career. If that were to be the case in 8 years, which I don't think it will be, I guarantee you 90% of the conversation and discourse at that point will be because Matt Nagy ruined him in year 1, because he didn't get off to a good start, because that will be a topic of conversation because the Bears didn't do enough in the first couple of years to support him, right? And imagine if he was drafted if he was drafted to the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, like because it goes both ways. This argument goes both ways. People say that, hey, if Patrick Mahomes were drafted to the Bears, he wouldn't be what he is now, right? These things matter to people, and they should, about where you get drafted, being put into the right position when you start your career. And there's people who can overcome it, and Justin Fields is going to overcome what he did in his first year. But if that were to happen 8 years from now, a lot of people would go back to that first year and say, well, he never had a chance because of the situation he ran into in his first year. So that's the only reason why I think it's an interesting point. But yes, the past is the past.
I guess
it is
like
what it is.
My counter to that, because like, yeah, the coaching has a lot to do with it, and obviously it was 1 year. Like, look at the flip that like. I just think like, doesn't some of the onus then have to be like, oh well, they didn't put the right coaches or the right players around him? Like, example, like Daniel Jones for 4 years, you're like, this guy stinks. Like, this guy should not be in the NFL. And now with the right coaching and really not even a lot of great players around him, but with a coach that's in the coach of the year discussion and might win the damn thing, we're like, oh, Daniel Jones could be a average starter or maybe slightly above, like slightly, and I mean that gratuitously, above average. But like, it just like, I don't know. I just think that it would be hard to look at an 8 or 9 or 10 year career that has been mostly underwhelming. Let's say he becomes a backup or something and be like, oh yeah, year 1 is where that all fell apart. Because also from that class, who really outside of Trevor Lawrence are you like, they're great? Lance is nothing so far. Mac Jones is fine. Zach Wilson stinks. That's it. Like, that's part of it too. Like, none of those guys are awesome except Lawrence, maybe.
We'll see. Well, as right now, Gabe Ramirez is going to join us right here. We're going to pop him in right now. Our guy, my guy, Gabe Ramirez from 670 The Score, B96. Also, BetQLU in the action all over the BetQL network, all over the Chicago sports media landscape. I mean, this guy's freaking everywhere, man. We had a conversation like one day. I work Saturdays with Gabe. You can see him on the screen now, Gabe Ramirez. We work Saturdays. This dude was doing BetQL for 4 hours while he was on the radio at B96, and then right after he was going to record for 670 Score. Dude is crazy, but he's got a ton of great Chicago sports opinions, betting opinions, so we're glad to talk to him here at Chicago_Gabe on Twitter. Gabe, how we doing?
I can have all those jobs, but I ain't shit until I made it to this podcast right here. Finally get a chance to talk to Jakey.
That's the nicest thing anyone said about this podcast.
Get to talk to you two guys. Now I can really talk my shit. I really say how I really feel about this.
You made it, man. All these years, all the work, all the effort put in, man, it just led to this point, and now you're at the top. Officially at the top, man. Let's go. Let's go. Nah, man, we're super excited to have you out here. Gabe brings the energy. He brings the fun.
All right, I'll come first. No, Kev, I'll come
Oh,
first because I was watching you guys, and Jake, I got to be honest, man. I've agreed with your take about Keenan Allen until I went and did the research, and because I had your same take. I was
the
like,
research wasn't great.
Yeah, and then I saw that, and I was like, he made me feel like I felt about David Montgomery, where I was like, oh, David Montgomery's always hurt. Then you go look at how many games he's played, and you're like, oh shit, this guy really does play. He must have just fucked up my fantasy team one time, and then all of a sudden, that's what happened in that instance. But Keenan Allen, but I do agree with the ultimate opinion that you had, Jake, which is I don't want him, right? Because you don't want to even risk that. I don't even want to risk it. It's too like a high value of a position to even risk a guy who you think is going to be injured or is on the tail end of his career to bring him in just to be that. Bears don't need anything like that and inside of the wide receiver room.
Well, just to tie a bow on that, because we're looking at the game started and it's like, okay, 14, 15, and then last year 10 is where we're kind of thinking. But also, you know what they don't have in these lists? Games finished. I think that's what we're thinking about. Like he starts these games, but like he end up how many times on Sunday it's like, oh, Keenan Allen missed the second half with a hamstring. I think that's been pretty like prevalent in definitely last year and the year before that too. So I stand by it. Actually, you know what? I'm not backing down off this.
Yeah, you can't afford unreliable players right now at this stage of a rebuild. You can't afford that. But on that topic of conversation, before we get into some Justin Fields stuff, we've been talking about wide receivers a little bit. We touched on Tee Higgins at the start of the show and how, there was that rumor that came out last week about how the Bengals are going to be virtually unable to pay him if he's asking for like a, quote, immense amount of money, which he will. He deserves to be paid that much, and he's going to go out into the market and get his money. Of the wide receivers that have been rumored to the Bear, or rumored to be either trade targets this offseason or free agent targets, who inspires you the most? If you had to pick one of Mike Evans, Devontae Adams, Tee Higgins, Keenan Allen, any of these guys that have been connected, DeAndre Hopkins, quote, connected to the Bears this offseason, if you had to pick one where in August this is your wide receiver one, who is it?
Oh, okay. My guy's not necessarily a wide receiver one, but I think he complements Justin Fields more so than anyone else. And Brandon Segru wrote a great article talking about 4 wide receivers that could be cap casualties. And one of them is Adam Thielen. I think about guys that could be like a sure-handed someone. Like Justin Fields needs that, right? Like this scapegoat. Yeah. He needs that. He doesn't need like a Byron Pringle running across the middle and dropping a ball or something like that, right? Adam Thielen is going to be that dude. And so where I think we all would want and love a big receiver that can go up and get it. What I'd love even more than that is somebody that can give Justin Fields a 5-yard option, a 5-yard blanket instead of, him, because he might not get to that progression down there. But I want to see him throw the ball a little more. I think we all want to. And I think Adam Thielen, he's 32. They got KJ Osborne. They got Justin Jefferson. They got TJ Hawkinson, Dalvin Cook, Kirk Cousins. So they already have weapons. And so Adam Thielen, being 32, he could just be that guy that could be a bridge, right? Someone that could, we're talking about making Justin Fields better. He can be, to me, someone that could help him be just that.
That is a great point.
I actually love that. Jake. Like that, because how many times do we see in those kind of situations where, Dante Pettis or Economia St. Brown is in that kind of safety blanket role and just drop through the hands, can't hold on to the ball. I think that makes a ton of sense because, Gabe, you said you were listening before you came on. Like we were talking about the potential, quote unquote, of Chase Claypool and what you hope he can be. And that was the whole thing when you traded for him. Oh, he's that guy that can go up and get it and win the jump ball. And he's this big receiver. And that makes sense. Okay, if you still believe that narrative about Chase Claypool, I have to call it a narrative because yikes so far, like then you need that sure-handed guy, that safety blanket where, okay, deep's not an option right now. Need the Kevin's favorite, the 5-yard slant for, right. The short gain. And I think Adam Thielen's perfect for that. Like that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and I think that, just going back to the Chase Claypool, comparison, it's like, it's not proven that he can get the ball down the field consistently like that, right? I mean, he had Allen Robinson, didn't throw it up to him a ton. He had Chase Claypool for a handful of games, didn't do that either, right? So, I mean, if the offensive line is going to be better and we're going to, if you want to say that he can do those things, great. But give me a sure-handed guy who's going to catch the ball 7 times for 63 yards. I'll take that for Justin Fields to keep moving.
Also, I also love that you singled out Byron Pringle because Kevin was on this show for so long saying Byron Pringle, he's the guy. That's who we're
I say
missing.
he's the guy.
And then he
Come
said-
on,
And then
don't.
Kevin Lapka on this show said, "Oh, he's off the IR. Here we go, next level." And then that ended with, I think, 2 catches on the year, something like that. So I appreciate that. See, Kev, this is the right side of history. And I tried to tell you, and I tried to lead you to the light. But anyway, I yield the rest of my time to the gentleman in the cold sweat with the Chicago flag behind him.
You look, those things were never said. Byron Pringle was never meant to be the savior. Could he have been more than what he was this year? Yes. Undisputed fact. He was supposed to be better than the production that he had with the Chiefs, which was not bad. 500 yards, 6 touchdowns. Come on, man. Like, I expected more from him. I'm not outrageous to have expected more from him. The interesting thing about Adam Thielen, why I think he will be a cap casualty, is they have to pay, and they're likely going to pay, Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson this offseason. Like, that's a similar situation we talk about with the Bengals, right? You got to pay Joe Burrow, you got to pay Jamar Chase. You just can't afford it, especially when Justin Jefferson's going to reset the market. And if you pay Kirk Cousins, like, he's not going to reset the market, but I mean, he's
pay Kirk Cousins again. We should also know.
Yeah, they're going to do it. They're going to do it, and they're going to be in football purgatory for another 3 years. Good for us, but Adam Thielen, that's a good name. Let's talk a little Justin Fields here, Gabe. So Gabe and I had an argument the other day. He came in.
You argued
for
with someone about the Bears? No way. That never.
No
happened.
way.
Yeah, shocking.
That
right?
never happened.
It was. It wasn't even. It was out of nowhere too. Like we were just. I don't even know what we were talking about.
Again, with you, no way. That never happened.
Argument. He was, coming in for his pre-show meeting, and here he is with Mark Grote. He's supposed to be having a pre-show meeting, and with, I think it was Tyler there. Tyler producer was there. Todd Beautiful. Supposed to be having he's about to do like a 3-hour show. Supposed to be talking about show topics, and instead he's debating with me for 30 minutes about Justin Fields. But I asked him this question, and you leaned into it. You leaned into it. You would not. You were relentless. You didn't want to give up on the argument. You could have stepped away, and you wanted to make your point. So now we'll give you another platform here to make your point. So Jake, the thing we were debating about is, where would you rank Justin Fields among the rest of the quarterbacks in the NFL at this moment? I said top 10. I had also said top 8, and then I rolled that back. I said top 8, and I rolled it back. That was a little lofty.
Jake looks like a disappointed big brother right now. He's like, God.
And that's what Gabe, I've done this podcast with this kid for going on 3 years, and it's just it's always the same things. It's like insanity is repeating the same thing over and over, and that's what I've done with Kevin for the past 3 years. It's like I'm disappointed, but anyway, continue.
Yeah. I think. Look, listen, Kev. If there's anyone else that you talk to that shares your passion and your fandom for the Bears, it is me. I am that dude. And so do I think that Justin Fields can be? Sure. I think that's what we're all hopeful for as Chicago Bears fans. But the fact of the matter is, in the present, if you're asking me in the present, do I think he's top 10? The answer is no. But that's just me being a realist, right? That's me not allowing the Mitch Trubisky 2.0 to take place where I'm fucking crowning the guy MVP, right? I'm allowing myself for there to be some grace and for me to, I'm like a wounded girl, you know what I'm saying? My ex cheated on me and I feel bad. He told me he was somebody else and I thought he was going to be somebody else and he ended up being a piece of shit. Now I'm in this new relationship and my guard's up, my wall's built, and I don't want to just tear it down immediately and give this guy, all of me, so to speak. So that's why I feel that top 10 is ridiculous, Kev. I mean, come on.
It's not ridiculous.
And then you start. Gabe. No, Jake, I'll just tell you the one name he said that Justin Fields in the present was better than Dak Prescott, which is ridiculous. You cannot tell me that anyone would take in the present. I'm talking about today, not what can be in 3 years or what direction. No. Justin Fields has not proven any. Look at his last game. His first game with Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy obviously just talked to CHGO and all that stuff like that. And he was talking about his first game against Cleveland. It was like, I don't know the exact stats, but it was like 6 for 18 for like 70 yards, right? Now, that was his first game against Cleveland that he played. His last game, he's 7 for 21 for the same amount of yards. Like, tell me how I'm supposed to muster up this courage to put this guy in the top 10 when that stat line is the same from the first game to the last game, which is shit in the beginning, shit at the end. And there's there hope there, yes. But in the present, you can't tell me, you can't make a good argument for him to be top 10 quarterback in the NFL.
So Gabe, let me guess. I want to circle back to the Dak Prescott point for real quick for a second. Let me guess. He said something along the lines of, well, if you give Justin Fields Dallas's weapons and you give him Kellen Moore and you put him in that situation with that defense. He didn't say any of
Didn't
that.
he say that? Didn't say any of that.
Wow.
He literally just sat back and was like, "Gabe, you're crazy."
So
Dak
no
Prescott's
stats,
not
just
that
vibes.
good, essentially.
No points, just vibes from Kevin Lapka.
Yeah.
No, there were points because that's a point that's accurate. Jake, where would you put him? Is he better than Dak Prescott? Because when I said that, you weren't quick to say no.
So
Sure.
I get where you could make the comparison. I think I'm with Gabe. I would take Dak Prescott probably. Like, I have more faith in Dak Prescott making the big time throw and making it accurately and on time. Like, I have more faith in Dak, especially as a passer right now. Right now, at this moment, February 8th at 7:39 Central Time. Right now, I get it though. I get where you're coming from. Where Dak had the interception issues, and yeah, he makes some boneheaded plays sometimes. But Justin Fields also gives away the ball sometimes and makes some boneheaded plays sometimes.
Sure.
I'll take the guy who can actually make the play with his arm more often than not. So I would put Justin Fields. He's probably in the top half of the league, probably top 15, top 14, around there. Probably like that 15 to 12 range.
Yeah, I was there with that. I had no problem with that argument. It was the top 10 that I felt was just ridiculous.
Right. He's knocking on the door. He's right there. And like Gabe said, the ending, that last game was tough. And yeah, you can argue that you were trying to lose that game on purpose. And obviously the first game against Cleveland, God, that was horrific. And I don't even really want to talk about it that much. We're hinging on that middle part, that stretch against Miami and Atlanta and Dallas, where it's like, all right, this is the guy. Here we go. Let's go. You got Dan Bernstein bringing his own chicken into the Score Studios because it wasn't a victory chicken dinner Monday, but he wanted to bring his own chicken. We got that happening. But, it's that part in the middle where you're like, Kevin wants to say he's a top 8 quarterback, and we want to believe he's the quarterback of the future. I'm with you, Gabe. I've preached waiting and patience with Justin Fields and not trying to be over the moon about him. I went on this show, our show, preseason, I said, I don't think Justin Fields is a lock to make the roster next year. This was before this season. And Kevin Lapka wanted to crucify me for that in the comment section, did not like that either. But while I do think that Justin Fields is definitely going to be on the roster next year, obviously he showed enough in that middle. I'm with you. Like, there is still a lot of improvement for Justin Fields. I think he's in that 15 to 12 range. He's knocking at the top 10. If we see the progression, hopefully, God, if the offensive line is better and there aren't a bunch of me's out there playing right tackle and right guard, maybe it'll be better. But I mean, I get you. Like, there is definitely some caution that still needs to be had with Justin Fields.
Yeah,
and we like to bank on the promise, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I tell Kev, because let's say you do go get an Adam Thielen. Let's say you do go get a Jordan Addison from USC. Let's say you do, sign a couple studs on the offensive line. What if Justin Fields is still the same Justin Fields that you've seen? And I'm talking about just like a tick better, right? Like, 'cause the assumption is, oh, well, if Justin Fields had this and if Justin Fields had that, then he'd be some fucking stud. Well, what does being a stud look like in terms of statistics and stat lines? That's the part that I feel like no one's really talking about. Is like, is he then 15 for 22 for 200? Right? Like, okay, fine. I can understand that. That don't make you a top 10 quarterback in the league. But if you're, 20 for 27 for 300 because you got Adam Thielen in the offensive line, time to throw. Now, but again, that's a huge deviation there, right? So you're trying to figure out where does he lie, and I think that's the more interesting conversation. Like, what does Justin Fields then become if he has all of that? Because then once you give me that answer, then we can have a conversation about those metrics and what that looks like in the grand scheme of the NFL.
I get it, and I also get that you're emotionally damaged from being a Bears fan.
Hurt,
and the thing is, Gabe's been way older than me and you, Jake. He's seen it, so I understand.
Jeez, you don't
why
gotta
he has
deal with
less
that.
faith.
Jesus Christ!
What the fuck was that, bro?
God damn.
Oh, you should hear the things that Gabe has said to me on BetQL in the action. I had to return it
because you're a baby, bro.
That's true, you are,
Who said it?
You are a baby, though. You are the youngest person on the show right now.
I am, and it's it's hard defending yourself. It is when you're the youngest.
When you're
one
wrong
here.
all the time, yeah.
Well, I'm not wrong, and I think part of it is, look, you've been watching the Bears for so long, and you said this when we were having our debate. You just have no faith that they're going to put the right pieces around Justin Fields so he can reach that potential. Yes, you did. You said you are skeptical of whether they can do it.
No.
Yes, you 100. Oh, he's rolling it back. You said that. So,
Kev, I never said that because I do have faith in Ryan Poles. I do have faith in I have faith in any team with a first-round pick and a ton of cap space to make a couple of right decisions, right? And if you're telling me that you're one wide receiver and 2 offensive linemen and a couple draft picks away, that's not far-fetched. That's not something that's unattainable, right? So, of course, I have faith that they can put guys around them. My concern is when they do that, what does that jump look like for Justin Fields? Is he still 7 for 20 for 100 yards? Because that's not good enough, you know?
Sure. And so here's an interesting case study, because I think the misconception is, well, the jump that he's going to take is he's going to immediately be putting up Justin Herbert numbers, Patrick Mahomes numbers, Josh Allen numbers, right? But the case that I'm at, and we did this weeks ago, I said, could he be the best quarterback in the NFC at the end of next year? We did this. It went viral on TikTok. People were shitting on me, going crazy. And at the time, I still don't think it's that crazy. And here's why, okay? I'll give you, this is a very interesting case study. Jalen Hurts is surrounded by probably the best offensive line that we've seen in the NFL in the past 5 years. That's certainly a case you can make. Great playmakers in Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, right? One of the more talented teams that we've seen, around the NFL in the past couple of years, right? They're just a good team overall. But you look at his stats, and when I read you his stats here, I don't think it's insane to see Justin Fields get even close to these stats. Like, I think it's extremely attainable. What's that?
You're about to read this from this year?
This year's stats from Jalen Hurts, okay? And because when I read these...
3 games, to be fair.
Did he miss 3? He missed 2.
2 or 3?
He played 15.
Okay.
He missed 2. And that's what Justin played 15 too, right? Or did he miss? Did Justin only miss 1? I can't remember. But here you go. Okay, over 15 games. 66.5 completion percentage. That's really good. 3,700 yards. Wasn't a 4,000-yard passer. 22 passing touchdowns. Not an exceptional number of passing touchdowns. Yes, he did rush for 13, though. 6 interceptions, great interception number, right? Rating of 101.6, that's great. Rushed for 760 yards. Again, 13 rushing touchdowns. 0 fumbles lost. But when you look at the passing numbers there, because for Gabe, obviously, the argument you're making as well, I just don't know if he has those, if he can become the passer that can lead you to the Super Bowl, right? That type of argument. What Jalen Hurts did this year as a passer, in my opinion, was not spectacular.
Okay, hold on.
He wasn't even a 4,000-yard passer.
I hear the argument you're making, but you're leaving out a very big part, and you left it out from the beginning of your argument as well. You talked about their offensive line being one of the best in 5 years and the offensive weapons. They also have one of the best defenses. They haven't had to play much. They haven't had to score a ton. They have a team that dominates. Of course, his numbers aren't going to be that great because he doesn't need to. They can run the ball a ton. They can stop teams on defense. He doesn't have to put up a ton of numbers, right? Next year, Justin Fields is going to be fighting for his life. He's going to have to put up 30 points just like he did in the middle of the season for the Bears to win some games. They're going to have a better defense, but they're not going to have some defense that's going to shut teams down the way the Eagles is doing. So, listen, we're looking at the statistics, and come on, we all know, we all follow sports enough that you can look at stats and you can see where they're skewed in certain areas.
Oh, sure.
And so, like you mentioned, and you called yourself on it, 22 tutties. Yeah, but 13 on the ground, that's crazy. 35 tutties is insane, right? 6 interceptions. We're talking about ball control. We're talking about throwing the 3,700 yards, and you ran a ton as well. Like, that's great. Those are great numbers for a team with a top 2 defense in the league. A team that broke records with sacks and had all these, like, he didn't have to do much. Look at the game against the Niners. That's a perfect snapshot of what I'm talking about right now. He didn't need to throw the ball. The defense was handling business on the other side. Granted, it was against, a 7th-string quarterback, but the defense was handling business, allowing him to just be a guy that can manage the game. So I don't even want Justin Fields' numbers to be there, right? Because it's going to be a different team. Show me a team that's going to be similar to the Bears and then point to guy. And I think you really are going to have to look at like a guy like Justin Herbert, really. Someone that's the offense is going to have to carry the team. The difference is Justin Fields gets to add his rushing yards into his total yards. And I think that's what you got to do, right? You can't say Justin Herbert gets to throw for 400, Justin Fields throws for 250, and that's the comparison. No, you throw for 250 and he runs for 75. Now you got 325 to 400 yards. Now that's what you need, right? That's what you need, right? You need that comparison for Justin Fields, not Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. Come on, it's not even fair. It's better to argue for like Patrick Mahomes, somebody that has to throw the ball and the offense the team is dependent on the offense because that's what Justin Fields is going to be next year. He's not going to be dependent on the defense to win games.
Well, sure, but at the same time, a good defense allows you to get the ball back more, especially in favorable. If you're a team that's getting a lot of takeaways, you're getting the ball back in favorable territory. That's going to lead to more touchdowns. You're going to get more time possession. So I think it almost regresses to the mean in both ways. Where you don't have to maybe throw as much, and there's not a greater sense of urgency late in games because you have a lead. But also, you're getting more opportunities earlier in the game because the defense is forcing 3 and outs every other drive. You're getting takeaways. I think they almost equal out, but nonetheless, I just don't think it's that crazy for him to reach the top of the NFC. I don't watch Jalen Hurts on a nightly basis and say there's things there that he does that Justin Fields cannot do. And
Fair.
that's and for me, and like again, there's things that Patrick Mahomes can do that Justin Fields cannot do. There's things that Justin Herbert can do that Justin Fields cannot do. And same with Josh Allen and a bunch of other QBs in the AFC. But the bottom line is we're in the NFC conference, and the fortunate thing for us is this is an extremely weak conference for quarterbacks. Extremely weak. I mean, after Jalen Hurts, there's a significant drop-off, considering Aaron Rodgers is going to be in the AFC, which I think he will be. There's a considerable drop-off, whether you like it or not, between Dak and then Kyler, and then we'll put Justin in that range as well. It's not going to take a lot for Justin Fields to be arguably the best quarterback in this conference for, the next 5 years. It just doesn't seem like it's that far-fetched for me.
Yeah.
Even whether they do put phenomenal pieces around him or not. So
I hear you. It's gonna be a tough test.
Well, to Gabe's earlier point, though, like that speaks like we can pick whatever we want. That speaks more to how weak the NFC is, not about. And I like Gabe what you said about it.
True.
Depends on the leap. Like, what kind of leap are you going to take as Justin Fields? All right, we're gonna put all this stuff around you. Now prove it. Show us. Are you going to take a Daniel Jones type jump where you go from stinky to slightly above average? And again, I say that slightly above average very graciously. Or are you going to take a Jalen Hurts jump where you go from about average to MVP? That's something like, if we want to do this NFC debate, sure, we can do that all day. These guys are going to leave and Aaron Rodgers is going to leave. Okay, but Lamar Jackson might go to the Falcons, so that tilts things. We could do that all day. But it's about the leap, like prove that you belong in that upper echelon. We're saying, you got to take the AFC out of it. Why? We don't want to take the AFC out. You hope Justin Fields reaches level where you could say Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Fields, and be done.
Sure.
But right now you can't. So I think Gabe's completely right where it's about the size of the leap. Are you going to be Daniel Jones? Or are you going to be Jalen Hurts? And God, I hope it's the latter, because if it's Daniel Jones, we're going to be in for a bad time.
Yeah, and I think, Kev, to your point too, I mean, when you're looking at what Jalen does better than Justin, and it is, you pointed the stat out, it is the completion percentage, right? It's something that's Justin struggled with crazily, and if he can get to Jalen's level, if he can get to that 65, that mid-60s like he did in Georgia and Ohio State, if he can get to that level, you're extending drives, time of possession, getting more points on the board as a result of it, making turnovers into points, like doing those little things, like that's the difference right there. That's the difference in Justin Fields from year 2 to year 3. That's a jump you're looking for. Maybe not in the yardage, but in the completion percentage, again, because he's going to be running more so than anything else. So completion percentage to me is the metric that I'm looking at a ton. And then, just dropping that touchdown to interception ratio just a little bit. Mm-hmm. But of course, that's going to change, hopefully, with a better offensive line and better weapons.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little draft here while we still have you for about 10 more minutes or so. A lot going on, obviously. We want to hear your thoughts about, I'm sure you talk about it every single day, about what the Bears are going to do, what do you want them to do. I'll ask you first what you think they're going to do with number 1 overall, but then because of, again, we work together in Betco, you and the Action, we watched a ton of college football, this year. I have a few questions for you about that. But first, ideal situation, if the draft were tomorrow, what should the Bears do with number 1 overall?
It depends on who.
Like a specific trade with a specific team. Like, what do you have a specific team in mind?
I mean, I think it's more likely that the Bears trade with the Colts than they do with the Texans. I think DeMeco Ryans comes in. He comes from a system that they understand you can have, like Jake was saying, slightly above average quarterback play and still be successful. And he doesn't want to. They're just like the Bears, where they have a lot of holes as well. So it wouldn't be in their best interest to give up assets in order to move up one spot, especially if you love someone that much. I don't think they will. So I think the Colts is going to be that team, because maybe some other teams will be pressing them as well, and the Texans as well, and they want to leapfrog, both those guys just to grab somebody. So for me, Colts seems like the logical choice. Eberflus coming from over there, there being some ties between the Colts and the Bears as well. So I think that makes it super easy. And then as long as you remain in the top 4, you're pretty much securing, one of those 2 defensive guys, because quarterbacks are going to go in those other 2 slots. So I think that to me is an ideal situation, right? Just solidifying your defense with some stud, whether it be Jalen Carter or Will Anderson. I like the 3 technique. I like seeing monsters just get tackles for losses. To me, that's my favorite part of the game. So I think that to me would be the ideal space. And then, you use those other picks to just, shore up the D line and the O line, you used your 2nd round pick on Chase Claypool, so you got to lean on that a little bit. You heard Tom Thayer talk about the Bears need a center. That was a pretty cool thing to hear. That, like, okay, add some more depth there, but bring bodies in. don't let it be just get Jalen Carter in the draft. You got to bring some more defensive linemen in. I don't want undrafted free agents coming in trying to vie for that second spot. Like, I want some more studs there. And then, if they can hit on a linebacker in the late rounds, that'd be great too. So I think, it's the initial trade, trying to see. I think Poles and his team, they'll do a great job of taking the best people that are available. We saw what they did in the second round last year with Jaquan Brisker and Kyler Gordon. So, they can obviously have a good eye for talent, not only on the offensive side, but on the defensive side as well. So I think I don't know. I really feel good about it. I was shitting on Ryan Poles a lot about his picks in the latter half of the draft. I didn't think they panned out necessarily well, but I forgot who was it that I asked. I asked somebody. Damn, I talked to too many people, but I asked somebody, and I was like, "What's considered a good draft? Like, how many starters?" And they said 2. And then I said, "Well, then fuck it. Then Ryan Poles had a great draft, And so I don't want to make any other argument as long as we got 2 starters that are going to be starters for the next 5 years on the team." So.
I mean, 2 is good, but you watch the Kansas City Chiefs, and they got those 2 undrafted guys making the game-winning play against the Bengals in the AFC Championship. Yeah. I mean, that would be nice. That would be pretty cool. But the question I want to ask you, I think there's an becoming, and again, this is going to happen for 2 months or however long until the Bears trade that pick. I think there's an increasing likelihood that the Bears could look at Vegas at 7, right, depending on how the Aaron Rodgers situation plays out, or Carolina at 9. And if they do that, or if they do a double trade down, right, they go to 4 and then they go down to 9 and they do 2. In that area, I think you'd be in the perfect position to take your wide receiver of the future. We've had this conversation before. We'll have it with you, considering all the college football you watch. We watch a lot of TCU, a lot of Ohio State. And although Jackson Smith and Jigba didn't play this year, I know you know what he's capable of. Of those 3 guys, before the combine hits here, that conversation is going to heat up in a couple weeks. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Jordan Addison, or Quentin Johnson. If you're there at 7 or 9 and the Bears want to look at finding the wide receiver of the future if they do a double trade down, who is your guy of those 3 wide receivers if they take that route?
First of all, I want to be very clear. I would be really upset if they traded outside of the top 4.
Agreed.
Really?
Like, I'd be upset. I would just be like, dude, this is a terrible decision, because the impact that your wide receiver can make at 7 or 9 is not going to be the same impact that defensive player could have made at 1 or 4, right? So that's my first thing. But I do obsess about this question, so I'm glad you asked it. And I did reach out to our friend Pete Futek, and I literally asked him this very same question. And I was like, Pete, I'm fucking looking at all these guys. I'm tired of watching these highlights. Like, who's the best dude? And he unequivocally said it was Jordan Addison from USC. Yeah. And he was just like, hey, Quentin Johnston's a big dude. He's like, they're all pretty much similar. He's like, but if you want a guy that's just going to be a stud for Justin Fields, it's going to be Jordan Addison. And hey, man, Caleb Williams didn't win the Heisman for nothing, right? I mean, he had to throw it to somebody. And a lot of times when guys are winning Heismans, the people that they're throwing it to are making them look really, really, really good. And so, to me, I'm all about Jordan Addison. But have you seen the mock drafts? They got him going like 30-something. Yep. Like, people got him going like 30-something. So for me, it's like, yeah, let's get Jordan Addison at like 35 and trade up like in some of that space. Like, tell me I get Jalen Carter and Jordan Addison. Like, are you fucking kidding me, bro? I'm gonna be sounding like Kevin Lapka on every time I do a show saying that the Bears are gonna win a Super Bowl.
Well, hey, I mean, the Colts have the 35th overall pick, I think. So there's a match.
I love that.
There's your match right there.
I need that.
I'm with you, Gabe. I'm completely with you. If you go outside the top 4, then you're just completely diluting the talent that you can bring in. I'm with you. I like Jalen Carter a lot. I think that's where you have to go if he's there. Let's say if you're at 4, or if you stick at 1, I think he's the pick over Will Anderson. But I mean, of course, Kevin Lapka wants to talk about his Ohio State alums, so that's where he's just got to obsess over.
No, well, I actually think it's interesting because I haven't really heard that opinion before, that you'd be pissed if they didn't stay if there was a scenario where they didn't stay in the top 4. I don't know if I feel the same way, because if they were to get down to 7 or 9, right, and that includes a double trade down, that's the biggest haul of assets that a team would ever get in NFL history.
Yeah, like, but now you're the Orlando Magic. You got a bunch of average guys. You got a bunch of you need superstars. True. You need superstars. You're like the Bulls in the 2010s. You got like a bunch of guys that can give you 18 points and 5 rebounds, but nobody that can score 30. Like, so,
but if you're picking up
first
rounders next year, if you picked up 2 first rounders next year via 2 trade downs, you really would be mad at that?
Yeah. I would 100%.
Well, because Kevin, think of it this way: like, you don't know that you're at number 1 right now. You have your pick of Jalen Carter or Will Anderson. You don't know where those picks are going to be if those end up in the second half of the, like the conversation we had earlier about what you would give up for Tee Higgins. It's like, if those picks don't fall your way, you're kind
Right.
of screwed.
And Kev, I know you're young, so you don't remember Aaron Donald being stolen from the hands and clutches of the Chicago Bears. But you do not know how painful that was to know that you had a generational talent sitting right there, one pick in front of you.
That was really funny.
You know what I'm saying? And so, and you don't remember that. So trust me, if it hurts, bro. Watching Aaron Donald win friggin' everything is like, he could have been a Bear, you know? So yeah, trust me. Jalen Carter, Will Anderson, the way they're talking about those guys is equivalent to that of an Aaron Donald. So I want that guy.
Really?
What?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if either
They're
of those
talking
guys
about
are equivalent.
Jr.'s Von Miller. Have you seen? We watched. I'm just saying what they're saying. I'm not saying what I say. I'm saying what everybody's saying. They're saying he's Von Miller, and then they're saying, and then if you watch Jalen Carter, are you fucking kidding me? He looks like a bully in the sandbox. He's like
he held up a grown man with one arm and then pointed at this guy with the other.
I want that guy.
That was crazy.
Yeah, come on.
I don't know.
Yeah, Kevin, you're too young. You don't understand these things.
No, I understand. I just don't think either of them are like
funny. That was that's the underrated line of the episode.
Man, I'm getting cooked.
Kevin don't like
Take
shots.
He
thinks you think it's something negative when I talk about your age, and I'm just envious, bro. I'm envious of being young, talented, you know, and so I just got to.
Well, because according to Kevin, you're about 1 million years old. So
yeah, well, I look it, don't I? I could tell right now.
You look younger than Kevin. You look better than Kevin.
He's looking down.
All right, Gabe, one more question. And we talked about draft. We're talking about how you can make this team better. Obviously, you mentioned it a little bit earlier for a second. Bears have all this cap space. It's some of the biggest cap space, margins in the league. Can't believe I just said margins. Anyway, who's your guy that the Bears, like for me, it's Orlando Brown Jr. That's who I want the Bears to go get. Shore up the offensive line, get a stud offensive tackle. Who's your guy where like, this is the dude who like immediate impact? Who's the guy?
I it's funny, I do agree with you, Jake, in that, the line's got to get shored up. But for me, a priority, oddly, is Hayden Hurst from the Cincinnati Bengals, the tight end. I think
free agent?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think with him, when you're looking at the tight end position for the Chicago Bears, just because you know how weak the wide receiver or the wide receiver free agency group is, you're not necessarily sure if you can get a top tier wide receiver in the draft. So you think to yourself, well, how else can I get a better weapon for Justin Fields? And it goes back to my logic with Adam Thielen, right? Some sort of security blanket for Justin, somebody that he can throw it to. And Hayden Hurst has proven that he's more than capable of getting catches, even in a crowded group with, Boyd and Higgins and Jamar Chase. So I would like somebody like that, somebody that won't necessarily cost a ton of money, that can be some help to Justin Fields. Because the reality is this, guys, right? There's fucking defensive linemen and offensive linemen that are out there that are going to be had, right? And they know better than I do about those guys in the trenches. And we could point to some guys that can be better than the others. But I know this NFL is about scoring points. And I just look at guys that can do those things. And Cole Kmet, I like him. I think he's a good guy. But I do think that they need another weapon from that tight end position that can help them out as you mix in. Let's not forget, Darnell Mooney's coming back. Oh, look, I saw that Kevin. Let's not forget, Darnell Mooney is coming back, a top-tier receiver in the NFL. So you got him in the mix with a really good, another good tight end like Hayden Hurst. You potentially bring in like a Jackson Smith and Jigba or a Jordan Addison kind of a guy to put in with Claypool. And now you got yourself like a bootleg good offense. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so
you got something, which is better than what you had last season, which was nothing.
I got one more for you, Gabe, about free agency real quick, because we've had this conversation before. Huge Tony Pollard guy. I am have always been an advocate of not paying running backs top dollar. I don't think it's worth it for a majority of the guys in the league, and I think there's a select few that I would be okay paying $8 to $10 million for. Tony Pollard is one of them. Obviously, the other name going around is Saquon Barkley. Say for them, it's kind of one or the other, right? Like you can load up on other offensive weapons like Hayden Hurst, or if they want, I don't think they should, but to like add an Alan Lazard or something, right? Or they spend top dollar, they let David Montgomery walk and they spend top dollar on a Saquon Barkley or Tony Pollard or Josh Jacobs. I don't know if I would love Josh Jacobs, but the stats don't lie this year. What are your thoughts on whether the Bears should pay top dollar to a running back, and if so, which one do you want?
Yeah, I'm all about David Montgomery coming back. I think he's a Bear through and through. I think he exemplifies what it is to be a Chicago Bear. I love when he stepped up in that leadership role 2 years ago when no one wanted to take that mantle. He stood proudly on that hill. It was like, I'm the man. I don't give a fuck what's happening on this team. So I really love that. I think also it's like what are you going to, like David Montgomery to a Saquon Barkley? Like we were talking about Keenan Allen, somebody that could potentially be hurt a lot. But when you look at Saquon's numbers, just like Keenan, he's played in a ton of games. But I just don't want to risk that. I don't want that to be an option that's out there. Tony Pollard, the game that Zeke went down against the Bears, Tony Pollard hadn't carried the ball over 14 times in this season for sure. I might have been in his career, but I think it was this season for sure. And so and in the game that Zeke didn't play against the Bears, he still didn't rush the ball for over 14 times. So that worries me just in terms of durability, and I wouldn't want to take a shot on a guy that you hope can perform exceptionally well without being part of a multi-backfield kind of a situation. So there's that. So again, David Montgomery, I'd much rather just stick with him, and I'd rather not pay the money to any of those guys because I don't think that's going to be the bump to fix your team enough from the running back.
Oh, really?
No.
I've always thought that. Trust me, I've always thought that. And then, and this is sort of an anomaly, and then I watched CMC with the 49ers, and I was like, holy shit. Maybe it matters a little bit more than I thought. And I still think, like, when it comes to the draft.
Hold on. Kev. You watched every single running back for the 49ers do that.
What are you talking about?
I don't know.
Raheem Mostert was doing it. Wilson was doing it. Like, they had like
Mitchell.
a fucking carousel of guys that were dominating.
Not the
Now,
same
granted,
way.
I'm with Gabe on this one. You could put any of us in a Kyle Shanahan system and we'd succeed. Like, that's just
I'm averaging 2.6 yards a carry. Facts.
Right.
Okay, maybe.
In your sleep.
Yeah, maybe.
All right, guys.
Right.
Guys. I'm gonna get in trouble if I don't get home to these children. Okay.
Yeah, you gotta get out of here, man.
I appreciate hanging out with you guys.
We appreciate you,
Look
big
forward to
dog.
doing it again soon. All right.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Gabe. You're the
All
man.
right, fellas. Have a good one, man.
Take
Peace.
it easy, brother.
That was Gabe Ramirez, man. Always a fun freaking time with him. We go back and forth. We have our little
That was
debates,
great, man. That was awesome. I feel, as I always do with the guests that come on, let me just kick my feet up real quick.
Oh, God. Here we go.
I just, whenever guests come on the show, I walk away from it just feeling so validated.
Yeah, why
And
is
I
that?
feel so uplifted and just basically being told I was right. And it just feels great, Kevin. You should try it sometime, being told you were right. It feels great.
We're just supposed to be bringing on shitty guests, man. If they're agreeing with you all the time, we bringing on these bad guests.
Wow.
Man.
See, you have to see him. You have to see Gabe.
Man.
You have to look him in the face and
All
stand
these
by
guys that are.
I thought
agreeing
Gabe was
with
awesome. And I would love to
Gabe's
talk to Gabe
amazing.
again on the show again sometime. So, and not whatever Kevin says about Gabe, I think he was great. So,
Gabe was awesome. We may not love his Justin Fields takes, but he's the man.
honestly, I think he made great points. Like,
No, he made
he's
good
right.
points. Yes.
He's completely right about the
He's
league.
right.
Like that is a completely correct statement to make. And on the
yes.
show, we love to project for the future and be on the
100%.
optimistic side of the projections. But he's completely right, and that's why you're hearing people say, "Oh, should they trade him?" Now, I don't think they will. I don't think they should. A lot of people don't think he should, or he should be traded, I should say. But it's why you're hearing some of those things. I mean, Gabe is right about that. We do have to have a pinch of realism in these evaluations. It's something that needs to. We got to do that. But we're going to get excited whenever these, whoever gets drafted, whoever gets signed, we will get excited and we will project Justin Fields to have a great year because that's just who we are as fans and as Justin Fields believers. But I mean, Gabe made a lot of really good points about being truthful about this evaluation.
But I don't like this narrative.
But I don't want to. It's basically what you're saying.
No. I don't like this narrative that's being put on me that I'm unrealistic for believing that he can have the season that can have a similar season to what Jalen Hurts had this year.
No.
And here, like, again, this goes back to what we talked about.
Let's not expect or think that he can be an MVP. Like,
let's expect it. See, this is what I don't like. Let's expect it. Yes, because
wouldn't you rather be pleasantly, because like Jalen Hurts coming into this year, we thought he could take a leap and take a step and be really good. Was anyone thinking that Jalen Hurts was going to be an MVP candidate? And I know people were betting it when it was a long shot price before the season, and like it was a fun thing to kind of think about. And maybe the same will be the same for Justin Fields. But wouldn't you rather be like, okay, let's get a Pro Bowl, let's get second team, third team All Pro. Let's just take a big step, and then we could shoot for MVP after that. Wouldn't you rather that be the case than go, here we go, MVP? Ah, shit.
Sure, like I maybe don't set the expectations there, but don't believe that it's out of the realm of possibility because like we spent all before this year, right? I mean, before this year started, before things went wrong in those first 6 games, like the expectations were set pretty high. Like he's going to take this big leap. Like, and then this year he struggles, and then he has, that big 6-game stretch, and the narrative becomes, hey, surround him with the right pieces, and he can become this. And what this is one of the top quarterbacks in the NFC. So if they do that, if they surround him with the pieces, if they do everything we ask them to do, if they put together a good offensive line, if they bring weapons in, then why would we roll back what we determined as far as what his ceiling could be when he has everything to his disposal? Like, don't be I think the message for me is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to go all in. Don't be afraid to be all in on Justin Fields and assume that he can be the best quarterback in the NFC. He has the potential to do it. We know that the ceiling is there. We know that the potential is there for him to do it. So, and quite frankly, like, why wouldn't you shoot for that? If he's anything less than that, at the end of his career, it's going to be a failure. So you might as well shoot for it now. He has the potential to do it next year. He's got the determination. It's not like there's something critical on his end that we're waiting for. Like with Mitch, it was more of a, hey, like we understand that it might be a longer process, but at the same time, we understand that the ceiling isn't there. This leap that he was supposed to take from 2018 to 2019 was like, yeah, he could maybe be good enough to lead you to the Super Bowl. That was a realistic thing that everyone said after the 2018 season. There was never, I know people at that time bet it for him to win the MVP, and it was like a really popular bet, but I don't think everyone really believed that Mitch would be the best quarterback in the league.
I don't know if people were betting Mitch Trubisky to win MVP.
Oh, people were. I remember retweeting something in 2018 that he was like the most bet player to win MVP for like a couple weeks.
Way,
yes, there was 100% away. He
no
came off a solid. He was a Pro
way.
Bowl alternate in 2018. They were a great team.
There is Kevin.
Look it up.
There's no
I'll look it up.
way that I believe you that there were people betting it at a long shot price. It had to have been 80 to 1 or longer. But I can't believe that the majority of tickets.
July 1st, 2019. Bears quarterback Mitch Trubisky is the most popular bet at one sportsbook to win NFL MVP in 2019. And it was Caesars. July 1st,
okay, so it's July 1st, 2019. So that market must have been open. You know what that was? I bet you it was like the Zach Wilson experience from this summer.
Right.
Where it was like,
yes,
Zach Wilson's taken the most tickets in the past 20. That's
yes.
definitely what it was. There's no way generally. Okay.
No,
July
I didn't say generally. I said for a period of time, he was the most bet.
Okay. So that's what it was. That 24-hour period was definitely what it was. Okay. That makes way more sense. Context matters, people. Who won the MVP in 2019? Rodgers?
Mahomes?
No. Had to have been Mahomes because Rodgers was last year and the year before. So, yeah, it had to have been Mahomes. Good deductive reasoning, team. All right. Well, that was fun. You know what I'm discovering?
It was Lamar, wasn't it?
No, it had to have been maybe 2019, 2020.
Mahomes won in 2018. It was Lamar.
So, wait. Mahomes won in 2018, 2019 or 2017, 2018?
2018, 2019, Mahomes. 2019, 2020, Lamar Jackson. 2020, 21, Aaron Rodgers. 2021, 2022, Aaron Rodgers. 2022, 23, Patrick Mahomes.
Mahomes, yeah. Got it. Okay, good deductive reason. We did that. All right, that does it for another edition of Bears Nation podcast. I've determined that this is my angle. I usually have this desk lower, but this is great.
I like that.
It's really excellent.
Really excellent.
It really is. I hope certain people are watching this.
And that'll do it for Bears Nation podcast.
Bears Nation podcast. This has been another great episode. Shout out to Gabe for coming on. We really appreciate his time. He was an awesome guest. His time was awesome. He had some really great quotes. We've lost Kevin. Shout out to most of the commenters, actually all the commenters, but including our favorite resident Lions fan. But we appreciate all the commenters. We appreciate everyone who came through, all the listeners, all the viewers. You guys rock. Once again, thank you to Gabe. And you know what? Thank you to Kevin for being here. We appreciate you, Kevin. So this has been Bears Nation podcast. Next week, live mock draft. We're going to do it. We're going to do the PFF. We're going to share the screen. We're going to do it live. We're going to go round by round for some trades. You guys can be in the comments. We'll take your input. It's going to be a lot of fun. Next week, come back a week from today. We are going to do our live mock draft, and we're going to go through every round. I think you can do the 7 rounds now, right? Whatever. We're going to do live mock draft, pick by pick. Me and Kevin will talk it out, make the pick, move on. You know how mock draft works. So join us for that. Thank you again to everybody, and especially to Gabe. Y'all are the best. We'll see you next week. And as always, bear down.